about the lecture series. In commemoration of Dr. Ambedkar's invaluable contributions, Boston Study Group has curated a series of lectures that explores various aspects of his life, work, and ideology. Our esteemed speakers at Ambedkar Lecture Series will dwell into topics such as caste annihilation, constitutional rights, gender equality, education, economic justice, and Dalit empowerment, shedding light on the relevance of Dr. Ambedkar's teachings in today's context. A little about BSG. The Boston Study Group is a non-profit organization registered with the IRS under 501c3. Based in New England, USA, we are an Ambedkarite organization dedicated to creating a just and equitable society. We organize study groups, monthly meetings, lecture series, and other social activities in the Boston area to support our mission. Our members include individuals, families, students, scholars, academics, and workers who share our vision of equality and upliftment. We focus on creating support structures and working with students from historically marginalized backgrounds. We are inspired by figures who have worked for human welfare, from Buddha and Sant Ravidas to Savitri Bai and Jyotira Phule, Periyar, and Dr. Ambedkar. Talking about today's speaker, Meena Kandasamy is a poet, a writer, translator, anti caste activist, and academic based in India. Her extensive corpus includes two poetry collections, Touch and Miss Militancy, as well as three novels, The Gypsy Goddess, The Woman's Prize Shortlisted, When I Hit You, and Ex- Exquisite Cadavers. In 2022, she was elected as a Fellow of the Royal Society of Literature and was also awarded the PEN Hermann Kesten Prize for her writing and work as a fearless fighter for democracy, human rights, and the free world. Her latest published work is Tomorrow Someone Will Arrest You, a collection of her political poetry written in the last decade. Meena, welcome to this session. Thank you so much for hosting, for being our guest today.
Hello.
Yes, we are able to hear you.
Oh yeah, nice meeting you, and happy to be here. And thanks to Sanjay sir for having me. And thanks to everybody at the Boston Study Group. I'm very sorry at the outset. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, we can hear
Can you
you.
hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry at the outset for being late. Dinner. It's dinner time for my children and their bedtime. So yeah, it's been a very difficult time. I didn't realize this when I committed. I just want to, very briefly touch upon a few things today, especially because I think it's a very small group interaction that we are having. I think it would be nice if, I speak for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then we can have more of an interactive session after that. If that's okay with the organizers.
That will
Should be
be.
okay. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, because I also want to, this is something that we have to think through, and something that, requires, I think, a lot of collaborative cross-pollination and thinking. So when I wanted to talk especially about this idea of bearing witness and about Adivasi resilience in India today, especially in Bastar. It comes from a very specific history because, people can, it's a very interesting question. Why does somebody who lives in Tamil Nadu, who is based in Tamil Nadu, suddenly want to, or not suddenly, but why do they want to engage with what is happening in Bastar? Why do they have to, you know, why do they have to go so far away and talk about something that is happening? And for me, as a writer and as a Tamil woman and as an activist, I think there are a couple of very urgent reasons that lead to all of this. The first, the first urgent reason is that there has been in the last, ever since 2014, but much more radicalized after this Bhima Koregaon case, where Dr. Anand Teltunde was thrown in jail, Sudha Bharadwaj was thrown in jail, um, and Rona Wilson, Mahesh Raut, a lot of cultural activists of the Kabir Thala Manch. When all of this was happening, I think we started understanding that there is a clampdown among of intellectuals, Dalit intellectuals, Adivasi intellectuals, and others, who are fighting against this morbid Hindutva and corporateization. And it was very interesting because the word that they were using, the word that they were using to go after people, especially writers and intellectuals, is this broad idea of urban axle. And for me, I have always understood and grappled with this question much philosophically, uh, because the idea of actually what is going there is that if you're silencing somebody who is in the cities and who is slightly leftist and asking questions, then the question is that, and you're calling them basically a terrorist and putting them under UAPA, then the actual question is, what about people who are, quote unquote, not urban Naxals? Who are the people whom you consider Naxals? And why is this hunt of the urban Naxal going on? And how is that related to the hunt of the Naxalite going on? And because I always feel that uh, as a strategy, it's been very well thought out that by silencing the people who are in the cities, intellectuals, leftists, activists, academics, it becomes so much easier to go and hurt, to go and militarize Adivasi areas, to go and do the kind of land grab that is happening there, to go and do the kind of militarization and all of this that's going on there. So, for me, this link comes from a couple of, as I said, interests. One is this idea of what is happening in the name of the urban axle, and how the silencing actually prevents the fact that a lot of people are just not writing enough about what is happening in Bastar. The fact is, you write about Naxals, or you write about the anti-Naxal operation, or you write about what is happening to Adivasi, you will be labeled an Naxal yourself, and you will be labeled an urban Naxal, and that's a very big problem to handle. And therefore, there's an enormous silencing that has, they have prepared the ground for this self-censorship and self-silencing. And the second aspect of dealing with this is that I also think that I'm going to share a certain link from a frontline interview I did with Sony Sori today, last week, and it is here. And the second idea is that um, this, you know, um, right at this moment, the Home Minister of India has given a deadline, uh, of 1 year um, for the elimination of Naxals, and he's calling this whole thing Operation Khagar, and says that in 1 year we are going. But what is actually happening, and that if you speak to voices on the ground, like Soni Sori, or listen to other journalists who are writing from this terrain, is that a lot, and there was another frontline article which said that in 2023, only 23 or 24 Adivasis were killed, but last year the number was already 300. And this year it's only 3 months, but you already have, a couple of hundred Adivasis who have been encountered in the name of anti-Naxal operation. And I think that this is a question that, we you have to I want to understand again, in couple of different ways. I'm not wanting going and jumping into Bastar and telling you, okay, this company is taking so much land, these many camps have been set up, because all of that is important. But I again want to say that why do we need to get invested? Why do we, like, people in Boston? Hello?
Oh, go
Hello?
ahead. Go ahead, Meena.
Ah, yeah, people in Boston, people in Chennai, people in India. What is it about this entire 1 year deadline that, because when you listen to voices on the ground, you realize that it's actually a lot of Adivasis who are unarmed, people who are just simply being killed, and then some reward money is being claimed in the idea that these people were Naxalite or are Naxalite. And the question again is, and it's we don't. I mean, it's one thing to look at it in an emotional angle, another thing to understand that it's a huge, gross human rights violation. On the other hand, to understand that people's life has become this collateral for the government to go ahead with this corporatization and militarization. But on the other hand, it's also a question of your rights. I mean, we live in a very federal structure. In a way, as Indians, as tax-paying Indians, this is a question that relates also to the fact that we pay taxes, and these paramilitary forces, these forces of the government, are basically funded by us. And therefore, if they are going on a killing spree in Bastar, if they are going on a raping spree in Bastar, if they're going on an encountering spree in Bastar, it's our tax money that's funding these people. And therefore, I think that there's a second layer of investment, which means that, the idea is we cannot turn away, we cannot look away, because on the one hand, it's not like we are cheering for it, but on the other hand, are we doing enough to make sure that our tax money are, and especially we have tax for everything, right? This All of this money is not diverted into this, into this Operation Kagar, which actually becomes a stand-in for, the witch hunt of Adivasi people, or the murder of Adivasi people, or the rape of Adivasi women, and, the killing of Adivasi children. Because right now, the reports that come from there, that are coming from voices on the ground, seem to indicate that this indeed is the trajectory. And we also, and therefore, I think that, just as the fact that this urban Naxal was meant to silence us, the second thing is that our own tax money is not used for this purpose without our consent, and therefore we become these passive funders of, an ongoing cleansing of these forests, or an ongoing displacement of people, or an ongoing military apparatus that doesn't seem to follow any laws of combat. And this is the second thing. And the third thing that, again, which I feel is very important, and we cannot stress its importance enough, is the question of, um, is a very real question of what happens to the people. Because at this point, it's really framed in a very in a way of, it's the state versus the Naxalite, it's the state versus, it's the Indian government versus these people, the armed guerrillas. And the problem is that once a problem is framed as this problem about two things, uh, it becomes an easy ruse. Like, the way it, once something becomes a terrorism problem, then it means there is a suspension of, all logic, there is a suspension of all procedure, there is a suspension of all humanity, and there is a absolute destruction that becomes legitimized. And we have seen throughout history what happens when a problem is framed as us versus terrorists, or the good government versus the terrorists, because we are living through what we saw in Gaza, what we saw that, Hamas becomes the terrorist standing and Israel becomes standing for the government. And then you have like 25,000 dead children, you have 60,000 dead Palestinians, you have a couple of million displaced Palestinians, you have all of Gaza reduced to a rubble, and all because it's so easy. We want to wipe out Hamas. And I'm saying that this is a similar situation is going to unfold in central India, because we want to wipe out the Maoists, or we want to wipe out the Naxalite, becomes a very easy catchphrase, but it is a catchphrase which means that it disappears the Adivasi from the land. It disappears the Adivasi from from the dialogue, and it disappears um, it disappears the Adivasi people's stake in what is happening. And I think that this disappearance is not innocent, because the minute the Adivasis cannot talk, I mean, they will not talk to the Naxalite because they are terrorists, and they're not talking to the Adivasi because they are immaterial, and therefore there is no dialogue. And the minute there is no dialogue, there is nobody to question them. It becomes a I mean, in the media, it becomes one-sided propaganda, and outside or in the forest, it becomes a one-sided mission to completely destroy the people, because here the people do not exist, because theoretically, on paper, this is a war between two sides, right? And I think that we have to be invested in it, because we have witnessed throughout history what happens when this rudimentary us versus terrorists becomes like this, because here we have seen close to India what happened. We realized that 1.5 lakh Tamil people were killed in Mullivaikal only 15 years ago. We have seen what is happening in Palestine. But also, just as it's our tax money that's going here, we also have to ask ourselves the next question. And that's a very important question: whose interests are being served? Who is accountable? And this is where, if you find the time, please do go and read Soni Suri's interview that she's given to Frontline. She really talks a lot about, the kind of military atrocity that's going on there, the paramilitary atrocity, the kind of rapes of women, the kind of hurting of children. And she also talks about why are they putting these big roads when people don't have electricity in their houses? Why are they building? And all of this points to resource extraction and troop movement. And the resource extraction is for the corporates, is for the big corporates, is for and this is really really interesting, because uh, the idea is it's a plunder. It's they cannot do this in any mining projects around the country. Especially, I come from Tamil Nadu. We know that there was a proposal to mine methane. People kicked them out. There was a proposal to do another tungsten mining. People kicked them out. And the thing is, it's so much easier. There is always such a massive pushback when it happens in urban centers, or when places are open to light, places where media can access, media can allow the people's counter narrative or people's narrative to actually go out. But what is happening in Bastar is very special, because we are seeing that even somebody like Soni Suri, who lives in Bastar, says that she is not allowed to go inside. She is not allowed to go and see what is see firsthand inside some of these places where the new camps have come. And she is not allowed to go. And so the thing is, even if you are an actual peer person from Dantewada who's living there, and your access is restricted, then the question again becomes, if this is what we are hearing, how much more atrocities are going on, and what is the scale of that, and how do we actually create a discourse around it? And to because this the whole manner in which this is such a militarized zone, but also the plans that corporates have for this, the idea of deforestation, but also environmental degradation, also the idea that all of this is and we've seen how corporates have behaved, like they've always been kickbacks to the ruling party. And we have to understand that this government is basically and largely propped up. Um, this government is largely propped up, and Hindutva is actually underwritten by these corporate funders. And like, you cannot imagine a Hindutva without Ambani. We cannot imagine an Hindutva without Adani, and we cannot imagine an Adani who is not doing resource extraction, right? So I think these are questions that, once again, in whichever way we look at it, whether we look at it from the perspective of Dalit movements, whether we look at it from the perspective of women, we look at it from the perspective of, just Indian taxpayers, I think it always circles back to this question. And I think all of this, and this is where we also have to understand that how are we building consent for this? Because the stories that you hear that are put up by embedded journalists, like, there's this India Today cover story which says, oh, in one year, the Naxalites are going to be wiped away, and then we have opened so many camps, and these camps are doing so much outreach or welfare or whatever. But the way in which this ethnic cleansing, and I may go as far as to say, and projected genocide, it's not happening, but it could happen. The way in which this is happening is through the development discourse. So the whole idea is that, we are doing this for development, and this is where um, I have had the opportunity to meet not only Sony sorry, but also 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I was in Silgare when the people were protesting against a police firing. And I managed to meet Raghu Midyami. And Raghu Midyami at that time was the leader of the Mulwasi Bachao Manch. And these were young people whose lives were upended by Salwa Judum, a people's militia or vigilant group they started. And having witnessed all this, they were themselves, people were coming and standing up against this militarization and, against these dams, against not these dams, so against these big roads, against these camps. And what I want to talk about here is that one of the things that Raghu actually said to me was that the reason that so many camps exist is because of surveillance, and that they want to place the Adivasi person under constant surveillance. That you just cannot escape the grid of surveillance. And the second thing that they were pointing out is that villages don't have power. Villages don't have schools nearby. There are no hospitals nearby. There are no small roads nearby. Villages are not connected to the main roads. But instead of all of this, the only development they want is the development that will allow for resource extraction, which is big roads. And also that, in the name of development, like all of this is done, but we are also seeing that this is the kind of, I don't want to use the word lab, but Bastar again is a ground where weaponry is being tested, that they are gloating about the fact that drones and digital surveillance is working, and that they're able to quote unquote go after the Maoists, go after the next life. But the thing is, what is the human cost of this? What is the cost of these weaponry being explored in Bastar? Because they say that mm, sorry. So yeah, so the thing is, they're using military grade, sophisticated weaponry against the people of his own country. They themselves, if you read these things, it's like they are calling. Only a few days ago, they said another 2,500 strong battalion of paramilitary forces will again be stationed. So this is becoming a situation of almost untenable, where you have to wonder what it is to be living as an Adivasi in Bastar. And these weapons that are being used are, it's the idea is that the we also have, as imagine that what is happening in Gaza was bombing, carpet bombing. What happened in Sri Lanka was again carpet bombing, cluster bombing. And what do we even do? If can we even imagine the plight of the Adivasi people if the warfare went from land combat to this kind of aerial warfare, or because already there is the use. And I when I talked to Sony, I heard about the use of barrel grenade launchers or unmanned aerial vehicles. And the thing is that all of this narrative doesn't come outside. It just stays within Bastar. It is not allowed. The anxiety around the narrative shows that, this absolute brute force of a state that, wants to achieve its military and its corporate campaign at any point in time. Um, and here it's very interesting that, this is where I again want to come, that this absolute paranoia about the control of information, about the fact that there is no access and we're not able to talk about it. And this is why they have already prepared the ground, because Indian people, I mean, irrespective of what we feel about Hindutva or whatever the government is in power in general, I don't think we as a people have a bloodlust to say that, another our own fellow countrymen have to be annihilated by our own fellow countrymen, right? Like there's some, even if it's not patriotism, whatever it is, we are not on a self-destructive, self-destroying suicide mission. And when we are a country that as people are not on a suicide mission, what is it that allows them this kind of opinion, this kind of war to happen, this kind of, are Indian people going to be fine when they say, when somebody like Soni Sori says, um, women in Bastar are saying, kill us with bullets, don't rape us, because the rape that's done by the paramilitary is so horrific. I mean, what is the answer for that? We're talking about children being killed with weapons. The bullet trajectory showing that children were shot dead. Well, how are we going to answer all of these questions? So the understanding is that given all of this is happening, there will be so much outrage. There should be so much outrage, but the outrage itself cannot happen because intellectuals have already been silenced, right? Intellectuals have already been given the silencing pill and have been told, if you speak about this, you're going to be an urban Naxal, and if you're an urban Naxal, you're going to jail. And so I just wanted to, kind of be silent at this point. And kind of open the floor to both discussions and questions and so on.
Meena, are you done?
Yes, for now, yes, we can take some questions and we can discuss. I think it's more interesting that way because it's only 20 people, right? Like it's more
Harita.
interesting for small group meeting.
Okay, thanks. Harita, go ahead.
Thank you, Meena, so much for being here and talking about what is happening. We do want to open this space for everyone to participate. Uh, so, for to ensure that you are in the allotted frame time, we request all of you for your cooperation in keeping discussions concise and focused. If in case a conversation is being prolonged, we may need to gently steer it back on track or move forward to accommodate everyone's time. Uh, Before we begin, we would like to announce about the Awaken, the BSG digital magazine. The Awaken is a Boston study group's digital magazine that provides a platform for all Ambedkarites in the diaspora to share their stories, thoughts, views, and talents to enhance the Ambedkarite movement. We are looking forward to literary contributions for our future issues from Ambedkarites across the globe, including our young Ambedkarites. Please visit our website bostonstudygroup.org, or you can email us at contact@bostonstudygroup.com if you need further information. This information will also be shared in the chat in case if you'd want to go ahead. We can now open it up for any questions or discussion points. Um, I do see some hands raised. Linda C. Miller, would you like to start? Would you like to go ahead? Or Narayana, I also see Narayana who's raised their hand. If you'd like. Sorry for that, I removed
Yeah, good. Thank you, Harita. Go ahead with the Narayana. I thought that that
Yeah.
is a culprit when I saw that they wanted to.
We are very sorry for that. Narayana, would you like to go ahead?
Hemant, can we delete that from the chat box? Do you have that?
I'm
Okay.
working on it, Sanjay sir.
Okay, yeah. Narayana, please go ahead.
I can unmute you.
Or you can post your message in the chat box if you want.
You should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, now I can see. Thank you. So, before posting a question, I would like to introduce myself. I am working as an assistant scientist, Emory University. Majorly, I work on virus and vaccines. My question is you see, so many tribes are killed in Manipur. So, is there any the real reason behind that? I just want to ask this question to Meena Kandasamy, please.
Hello, sir.
So in Manipur, so many tribes are
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. No. Definitely, Manipur is a very. Oh, what is happening in the group?
Yeah. So somebody tried to hack that one. So don't worry about that. We will try to remove those comments. Meena, you can go with your
Oh,
answer.
yes, sir.
Sir,
Sir,
I
no.
tried
I
to
think Manipur is definitely
Sanjay,
a
disable the
huge.
chat.
Yeah, just hold
This
on. Hold.
Manipur is generally a problematic area, sir. But I wanted to today. I'm not particularly aware of all the details of what is going on there, even though I'm aware of the inaction of the government, which could have brought an end to the violence if they could have done it. Um, for me, it's much more interesting that today I'm talking about the Adivasi struggle in Bastar because, even the level of what is happening in Manipur, you don't pay any attention to this. So, in the media space, this is really a virtual black hole. And on the other hand, as even when we say there's no attention from dissenting voices or, there's from journalists. Nobody's allowed to go there, nobody's allowed to do journalism. There's only one narrative and that one narrative is the narrative of the state. The narrative of the state is that we are going to kill them all in 1 year. There's going to be no Naxalism. And we will do it by all means necessary. And saying this, either the answer is Boli or Boli. I mean, this kind of open public threat and setting up the stage, I think this is incomparable with anything that's happening anywhere else in the country. That's really a very special situation that I think I would compare to Palestine or Gaza than to Manipur. But this is just me.
Raidas had the question.
Is there another question?
Yeah, he has raised the hand. Harita, Raidas had raised the hand.
Raidas, please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Sanjay, and the team for this opportunity. So I have a question, quick question. So these the land issues, they're there across India in most of the states. Even I'm from Telangana, see that in Adilabad, wherever the tribal population is there. So in all these local, there are some organizations are engaged. Is there any consolidation effort where these organizations which are fighting for tribes, Adivasis, come together at the national level? Was there any effort to bring these organizations, just put a united front?
Sir, I am unaware of much of this because I think there is some danger at this moment for anybody. Like even like see, the problem is what has happened under UAPA is that an individual can become a terrorist without belonging to any terrorist organization whatsoever. So once the law has been made to attack people like this, the idea of any kind of collectivization becomes a problem because even as an individual, can be considered a terrorist, right? So even if people are trying to work together or coordinate on X, Y, Z points together, I doubt if anybody wants to make that public because once you're public, people will sit there. That's the entire playbook of Bhima Koregaon, no? That people who are disparate around the country, not even in touch with each other, were called as, saying there was a conspiracy. So definitely, I think people, even if they're working towards on these issues and have like common platforms, the problem is that and this is one, so there is definitely the fear that anything that you do becomes, amenable to problem. But also all the examples we can see, there's the Mulvasi Bachao and Manch, very peaceful local organization based in Bastar. What did they do? They just banned them. Chhattisgarh's government banned them in 2024. So what we see is this level of, you start anything, you're going to face a ban or you're going to be called as a Naxal front. And this is no, I don't see the way out of this, but because this seems to be the kind of the playbook of the state. But thank you for asking this question. I like you. I also wish that that there is an answer to this because, like, remember, like I told you earlier in the talk that I was in Silgir and I was witnessing this Adivasi protest, and the one of the leading persons was a 20-year-old woman called Sunita. But what happened is Sunita got arrested, picked up. She went to write her exam. She was trying to write a class 10th exam or something. She got picked up. She was arrested. Then there was another very young person, 23-year-old Raghu Midyami, who was also the president of this Mulvasi Bachao Manch. Very peaceful. I mean, technically, very, just as talking about the problems that the state was creating through their corporatization, militarization program. He was also arrested, randomly picked up, produced in Jagdalpur court the next day. So the thing is that once people, even if they come together in a very peaceful white flag, um, civil society way, there is a hunting down that is happening, and these are only the two, like names that I, from personal experience, I met. I sat down with these people and interacted with them. But there are thousands of activists whose name I don't know, whom I not met, and whose future we don't know, whose fate we don't know. At least these two we know they're arrested because there may not be many who are not arrested. There may be many who are just simply encountered because they, had the idea of starting an organization. So the aim of the state at this point is to keep everybody fragmented and to uh, perpetuate, I think, greater silence. So yeah, your question is very incredible, sir, but unfortunately the we are also working, I think, against a very hostile state. Hello.
Raidas, do you have any counterpoint to that question, or should we go ahead with further participants? Uh, Meena's raised their hand. Meena, would you like to go ahead? Hello.
Yeah, it took me a moment to unmute there, Harita. Thank you. Thank you, Meena. It's nice to have a namesake who is such an activist and a great voice. Thank you for the work that you're doing, courageous work. I'm based here out of Boston. Tell me a little bit about the media. Is there any media outlet that is independent enough to bring out these stories and all these killings that you're talking about, all these activists disappearing and being subjected to all that they're being subjected to? That's one. The other question I have is, do you have any tie-ups with Swaraj Abhiyan? I understand there are some decent leaders there. If you could speak to both of those, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
I think that it depends. I think Wire, for instance, has always been a place where we could write about this kind of thing. The Wire. I think that Scroll also has, their own journalists who do like brilliant work. Malini does this work for Scroll. Frontline, we are quite lucky because the Hindu has always managed, at least within India, to kind of highlight what is happening. But frontline, we are also being based in a non-BJP state gives us a little bit of leeway. So, and this is why this article was published in Frontline and not anywhere else. But I definitely don't think that this is going to become the talking point in any TV or another, like popular media. It's still going to be limited to, website, online media that are, self-financed. And see, the thing is that this month, if you look at India Today, the cover story is Amit Shah photo and saying that he's going to be successful. So there's no shame because the journalists are claiming that the journalist who did all the stories is claiming that he himself went and stayed in these camps and visited these camps, and he's like completely an embedded journalist. They're not even having the pretense of saying that they're writing the two sides of the story. This is simply the state embedded version of the story that they are putting out. And then in the local level, what do we see? I mean, forget the journalists who are writing in Anglophone media, but on the local level, what do we see? We see that Mukesh Chandrakar got killed because he was asking questions. So the thing is, nothing is being posed as a debate for the people. The narrative is being said that the state will eliminate an axle, and anyone who protests is why are people being made the collateral damage? How do you define an excellent? I mean, anybody who asks all of these questions are called anti-national, anti-development, and I think in the worst case they're called a terrorist. So, and I'm not very aware of this other organization because I'm sure I met people from there. If possible, I don't know, uh, but I I wish I knew more.
Meena, do you have any further questions to the speaker? Any more questions or discussion points? I see Vishal raised their hand.
Yeah, Vish.
Yeah. Hi, Meena. Thanks for all the information. Uh, Considering the hostile situation now, could you please tell us what will be the most effective way from our side to contribute in this moment?
Uh, I think no, I think we have to talk about it because see, largely there's only one narrative that is floating, and that narrative is the state narrative. The state narrative is that every day you read the papers is 30 Maoists encountered, 35 Maoists killed, 30 Maoists killed every day, and this is not even like one day; it's like 12 or 5 or 6. Every day it's like between 25 to 35. And we all know that, see, on the one hand, they are claiming there's only 1,500 Maoists in the jungles. So how is it possible that every day you're killing 35 people when the number of Maoists itself, is so limited? So the question is the numbers don't add up. Even according to their own sources, the numbers don't add up because they're definitely killing Adivasi people in the name of killing eliminating the Maoists. So I think what we have to do is to amplify this kind of voices on the ground, amplify and ask these kind of questions. One of the things that Sony, for instance, in the I shared it in the link in her frontline thing, asks she's asking for an audit. Where does the paramilitary get the reward money? How is it possible that none of these rules are followed and people are just basically paramilitary forces are dancing and DJing? So I think what we have to do is to keep speaking, writing, organizing, and like basically talk talk about what is the necessity for the state policy and how can the states, because that is literally what's happening. And we also have to allow people to understand that some of this is what is happening as a result of a company corporate greed, because the state is only a hired gun. The state is not doing this because it wants the land. The state is trying to get the land for some corporate or the other. It's trying to get the mineral and the resources for some corporate or the other. And we have to talk about this also in the lives of people. Just because people's lives are not like our own and they're not sitting in front of computers or, they're not writing novels or whatever it is, that doesn't mean that, their life is any less than our life. as important as our lives are. So we have to, stand against the displacement, fight for the right to the land, and fight for the right to live with dignity.
Vishal, any follow-up questions? Um, any other questions from the audience?
Arita, Sanjay here.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Vishal's question was how someone from the USA can help in this particular struggle of the tribals. Means, um, I believe that is what he was looking for. But Meena, this the growing number of tribal casualties under the garb of urban Naxalite is really very serious. You are saying around 25 or 30 daily dying and all this, correct? Last ALS session, we had Ashok Kumamu, who spoke on disposition of our accumulation and the
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
anti-system struggles, correct? He shared the same thought that how these tribal organizations who are fighting for their legitimate rights are being subjected to brutal atrocities. And we have our president, a tribe from the tribal communities, correct? And still this type of atrocities are happening. So is there any, at least some dissent or anything from the president about what is happening to our own community?
No, sir, I think that is because as much as we can be happy with the representation, we also have to understand the limits of identity politics. That when people are there for very token purposes, they are not going to the tokenism will prevent the articulation of any radical thought or any thought that
Sorry, is it just me unable to hear the voice?
No, I was asking the same question. I believe, Meena, you are breaking. Meena, are you there? Yeah, we must have lost her. Oh, she joined again. Okay. Meena, are you there? She joined back.
hello, I got disconnected. Please tell me. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
means while answering my questions, your voice was breaking, so we could not hear anything.
Oh no, no. I'm just saying that the president itself is shows us the limits of identity politics. That she may be an Adivasi woman, but doesn't mean that she is going to stand up for their rights at this point, because it's more important to serve the interest of those in power, those who gave her this position and stuff like that. On the other hand, that's one. But I do hope that every single person rethinks what they're doing and doesn't go on this bloodlust and this annihilation campaign is what I think.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Sanjay. I see Meena has raised their hand. Would you like to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. So, Meena, to quickly round up, the organization that I was mentioning is Swaraj Abhiyan, led by Jogendra Yadav, which was a breakout faction from Aam Aadmi Party. So that's one thought. But, to me, getting organized is extremely important. And getting the regular people where there is a sense of apathy, those are the ones that narrative needs to shift. And to your point about the president, it's disheartening when a tokenization becomes the norm, right? And that is used to silence what is happening. So some just sharing those thoughts. And one question I have is what kind of dialogue is happening in the public on larger platforms where voices, different voices, why the fear? Why all of this is happening? Is that happening on a more regular basis? Because we have to, social media is such a powerful tool. There is democratization of on that platform. So what is being done to inspire the regular Indian? And I think you were making some comments about it, that this is not how most Indians are. So how is it that this is being allowed? So, I guess some random thoughts, I guess, to kind of say, you have to organize. Not organizing is not an option. And I guess to one of the commenters earlier, how can we help?
No, I think that this is what I was trying to tell in my whole talk, madam, that the problem for the silence is because of the whole idea around urban excellence. It's not a joke. Like people are being picked up, people are being served with UAPA, people are being charge sheeted. Any person is being linked to any case. Labor rights activists are jailed, journalists are being jailed, media people are being jailed. Everybody has some UPA around them, or the UPA scare around them. And once you're scared about this, and it's not a small thing, there's no bail, right? There's no option of bail. So it's like jail means you're going to go for a whole lifetime or some close to that. So this kind of, this threat of the arrest and, the encounter and targeting, if you're living in the cities, it's definitely the fear that, they're going to link you. They're going to just say, oh, you're part of a huge Maoist network, Naxalite conspiracy. They say any random.
Meena, I think we lost you again. You're connected.
The question is that, the situation is dire. And the question is, I don't think we have to think it has to begin at a much more micro level in terms of raising awareness. Because once you raise sufficient awareness, there's always a point at which people decide to come together. But if we don't do any awareness raising or consciousness raising and simply form a platform and then try to find people, I think that doesn't work that way, because that's my understanding of how this works. And also, once again, to answer your question, is that why is dialogue missing? Dialogue is missing. We see, even at the height of the 80s, 90s, People's War, whatever group was there, the government was always talking to the Naxalite, because now we have come to a new terrain where, it's not only dialogue with the Naxalite, dialogue with the Adivasi, dialogue with anything, no dialogue. This absolutely not dialogue with the dissenter. Everything has been shut down. The only thing is, please print whatever the Home Ministry is saying. Please print whatever the military is saying. Please print whatever the state is saying. And people cannot fight back. People are not fighting back, because look at what happened to Bhima Korekar. Look at what happened to Anand Teltunde. Look at what happened to Professor Sai Baba. Everybody who spoke is in some way either in jail or dead. Like, look at what happened to Father Stan Swami. So when your future is either jail or death, who do you think is going to speak about? Like, people are not like, that's the way the terror and the threat from the state is working, I think.
Venkat, you have raised your hand. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Harita. Yeah, and thank you, Meena, for joining and sharing this valuable time with us.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
I know. So,
Thank you for
my
having
question
me.
is a little bit more, higher order, more of the philosophical, or I know you are a writer, and you guys read a lot, and see, any society, right? I mean, when we are, talking about they are doing this. I mean, in my view, anybody who has power wants to do what he wants to do. Okay, we need to less talk about what they're doing. I mean, they keep doing that is what they want to do. And the question is, what is happening to rest of us, rest of population, rest of the society, right? I mean, there is a, some autocratic ruler comes, autocratic government comes, there is always a resistance. I mean, we've seen in the history, all through, to modern history to earlier. And the thing is, in India, I know it's. I grew up, by the way, in hinterlands of Telangana when this whole Naxalite movement was at its peak. That all actually, I mean, all these guys went to Chhattisgarh now, but I mean, there is always people's movements, right? In any society, and India had a history of their own people's movements, and revolting in various ways, and so what happened to India in the last, I keep analyzing because you'll be surprised if you go to Telangana now. I sometimes struggle to understand, did this land had this kind of vibrant, even that starting with the first armored struggle, of communists against, this Nizam and all that in 1940s to this very vibrant Naxalite movement in 70s and 80s and 90s, okay? No, it's changed a lot now, that the society. And I've been, as an observer, one thing is the society, the middle class, has really, really, made a, whether we like it or not, in some fashion, we made a progress. And that middle class, what we call today, is completely indifferent to the societal problems that are, around us, So overall India, except the recent times, what I can say is the farmers movement, that was really, really done an amazing job, and they were successful, okay? Um, Other than that, and of course, I also put a Telangana struggle also in that, because without violence and all that, it's a very complex problem we could solve within the framework of Indian Constitution and democratic principle and parliamentary democracy. So it's a great thing also. I've been part of Telangana movement for a long time. So my the philosophical, as a what is going wrong with India and society? Why you're right? What is happening in Chhattisgarh is really, really bad. What happened to in Manipur? What is happening to the Indian? This society not able to react, and hardly Manipur we are taking it for granted. Chhattisgarh we did a organized couple of protests and meetings about Manipur, but that's about it from here. So very, very bothering, why it is this. So, just you can throw light as a, I know a scholar, writer, a little bit bothering, where the India is going and our society, the value system. So that's my very larger question. Thank you. Hello? Is Meena here or?
Yes, Venkat, Meena is here.
Yeah, she's there, yeah. She's muted.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Meena, you're on mute again.
You have to unmute me. Oh yeah, hello. Thank you. Thank you for this question. And no, I think you have a very long appreciation of what has happened and what is happening over time.
Yeah.
But I think there are a couple of things that we cannot look at this in isolation.
Oh,
And one of the things is, like, if you ask me as a general observer
yeah,
about, let's say, what's happening in Basar,
yeah,
there's this Bhima Koregaon, this, the silencing of the intelligentsia. But right, because look at the rate of unemployment, look at the fact that there's complete wage stagnation across the board. Look at the fact that the rupee is losing its value, so it becomes a currency you cannot even say anything. It becomes like uh, devalued every day. And look at the kind of the mess that they have got into with the sovereign gold bonds. Is that I think that there is going to be so much of unrest against the state and BJP politics that have been push for the last 15 years. So much of this is, these neoliberal, whatever, that people are going to raise questions. And the thing is that by this kind of force, if they like silence the resistance everywhere, their belief is that there will be no resistance to talk to them on what you call quote unquote issues. So at the end of it, like, the young people, the demographic, there's no problems. The fact that workers are going to face some, even
Venkat, I think we lost Meena.
Yeah, we lost, I think. Yeah. It's okay. Yeah. Just wait and close the meeting, once she comes back.
Yeah. Rita, I think you can close it now.
Yeah.
Sure, Sanjay. Just on the closing notes, the Boston Study Group strives to engage in more meaningful discussions like this that inspire positive change in our society. Whether you're a scholar or activist or a student or even a concerned citizen, your participation and presence are invaluable in furthering Dr. Ambedkar's vision of more just, equitable, and inclusive world. On behalf of our group, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude for your participation in today's Ambedkar lecture series. We hope that the knowledge shared during these lectures have inspired you. If you have any questions or need any additional information about the lecture series and also about the Awakened BSG digital magazine, please contact us at contact@bostonstudygroup.com. We look forward to welcoming you to future events. I'm Harita and thank you again for your attention. Have a wonderful day.